Welcome to Real Talk with Reginald D. I'm your host, Reginald D. On today's episode, I had Justin Brennan. Justin is a third-generation multifamily investor who rebuilt from a $60 million family bankruptcy to a $185 million portfolio. His story offers rich lessons in resilience, mindset, and strategic investing. Welcome to the show, Justin.
How are you, man?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show with me.
You bet. I don't know if we're allowed to say we're here on Sunday, God's day, but we are. This is good.
That's it. Always good. Always good. So, Justin, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your childhood was like.
Childhood was pretty good overall. I mean, I guess, and it's kind of to speak from it, because I was a fortunate one. I did have a mom and a dad in the house, right? And I wouldn't say it was perfect because, parents divorced when I was younger, around 8. But I did have a dad that was always present and showed us hard work, the value of a dollar, respect, and working hard. And then mom, who was always nurturing and kind of always there, stay-at-home mom, PTA mom, soccer mom, if you would call it. But, nothing was ever, ideal. We never grew up wealthy initially per se. We were, I guess, Dory Road in Bonita, California, near San Diego, little 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And I don't know if you've ever read that book, The Power of One More by Ed Mylett. If you've read that by chance or at all.
No, I haven't.
No. But it talks about in that book, you have these transitional characters in each family lineage. And every family may have it. Maybe it hasn't happened yet, but it's going to happen. Heck, maybe that's you. But for us, it was our dad. And kind of speaking on him and how kind of get where I came from in this, but he didn't have a good childhood. So his dad died when he was 3, had a stepdad that was very abusive physically and, verbally. He ended up kind of leaving the house and going off to Vietnam. He was supposed to be the little cushy driver guys driving the Avrils around in the Jeeps. That was supposed to be the job. And they said, nope, you're going to go the other way. And he became a door gunner in the helicopters, and the choppers. He didn't know at the time, but the average lifespan was 7 days for a door gunner in Vietnam. That's crazy. And they would always sit on bulletproof vests when they were inside the helicopters because they'd get shot up from underneath. And my dad talks about the stories from time to time, but he said, Justin, you and your sister and brother and everybody, you guys are a quarter of an inch from never being born. And we're like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, we'd always go down in the paddy fields. We get shot up. This one day we went down in the paddy fields, get shot up, came up through the helicopter, killed the door gunner on the other side, killed the co-pilot, and wounded the pilot. Pilot could still fly. Came up. My dad would sit on 3 bulletproof vests. And it came through all those bulletproof vests, stopped in the last one, the 3rd one.
Wow.
That was it. And so, it kind of goes to show you that, life changes very quickly, as we all know. You don't know when it's your time. And so he comes home from Nam, gets into real estate, gets his real estate license, but hates sales. He wants to go build things. So he starts building little homes, single family homes, and then it gets into kind of mini subdivisions of maybe 10 homes. And then he would do larger ones, 50, 100 unit subdivisions of homes. And then he would do multifamily. And whether that's condo complexes or townhomes or apartment complexes, whatever it was, but he kind of had that trajectory. And this is kind of when I talk about this transitional character from 0 to hero. He was that for our family and made it big, right? Made it big. He was doing stuff all over the Western United States, making gobs of money, and went through 3 market cycles, everything from the late 80s to early 90s, early 2000s and so forth. And then here comes our wonderful financial Great Recession crisis of 2008. And it took him down. It took him down. I mean, he was too much leverage at that time, had assets, but too much leverage. And the market transitioned so fast, he couldn't catch it. And so that's when you talked about this massive bankruptcy, that's where it came from. It was a $60 million bankruptcy. At that time, I think he had 80 million in liabilities and 20 million in liquidity and assets, but that's irrelevant. It's irrelevant if you're personally guaranteed on these loans and this leverage and it goes bad quickly, which it did. It was too violent to catch it. And so I watched all that go down and it was pretty unbelievable. I learned a lot from it though. Lessons learned, you learn two big things. Cash flow is king, and don't over leverage, right? Don't over leverage. So that's kind of where I came out of that. And if I was going to grow wealth for me in this next stage, I wanted to do it on a little more consistent trajectory. And so that's where the apartments came in. And so I wanted to get into rental properties, and people are, well, it's not as sexy and it's slower money. I totally get that. And you're right. But it's also, you sleep at night and you get to grow wealth through the apartments and the tax advantages and all these other things that happen through the multifamily apartment game. And so in 2010, we bought our first condo. It was a little rental condo, $100,000, nothing sexy, put $25,000 down, $75,000 loan, cash flowed about $600 a month. I mean, nothing outrageous, but it was decent. The percentage return was great. And then we got into little duplexes and fourplexes and triplexes and stuff and did pretty well with those. But we wanted to scale. I just didn't know how to do it. And I'd never heard of this thing called OPM, right? Other people's money, but I had to learn it. And so fast forward 2010 to 2018, we had about 20 units, about $3 million in assets. Pretty good. But we wanted to really go. We wanted a lot more than that. All our money was tied up. Like, we were doing it all with our own money. We didn't know how to pull money out, move it, pull money out, combine it with other people, and scale. And so I had to learn this. And I don't know. I mean, everybody has these, I don't know if you want to call them moments, right? In life. Sometimes they're caused by tragedy, sometimes other things. But in 2018, I'm sitting there, we're doing all right, but I'm kind of frustrated, right? I'm not where I want to be. And I don't know if anybody's had these feelings, like you're sitting there going, this is almost midlife for me at this point. We're good, but I'm not where I want to be. And I'm frustrated and I'm mad. And you combine that with a tragic moment. We'd lost my sister then in 2018. So, she was 46, way too young. But, in that moment, you kind of have these reflections of going you don't know how much time you got. It could be next week, tomorrow, 50 years, who knows? But you kind of get mad enough from that, and it drives you. I tell people, I said, pain is fuel if you use it right. Right? Pain can also drive you to depression too if you allow it to go the other way. But, pain is fuel if you direct it. And so for me, it was. And I was like, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm holding myself back. We're playing small ball. I know we can do a lot more, but, you have these fears and everybody deals with them. Are you good enough? The imposter syndrome, all these things that go down. How are these people doing it and not me? That whole game. And then you hold yourself back internally by not just leaping and letting the house show up, and you play the scared game of paralysis analysis game. But you finally get to a point where you're pissed off enough and you've had enough pain. And I said, I'm going for it. And I was literally scrolling through Facebook, came across an ad for a syndication conference, right? Where you can learn apartments and how to use OPM and all this stuff. And I said, you know what? Let's go. Booked the ticket. It was in Boston, completely across the country, 3,000 people, and went over there, flew out there, spent the money, did all that, bought the best ticket because I wanted the front row to get in the green room to meet the right people and shake hands. And that changed everything for us, because I'm sitting there in the audience. And a lot of times you can sit in audiences and have the imposter syndrome of oh, I can't do this, right? Or these people are smarter or this or that. And I luckily had the other opinion of wow, if these people can do it, right? If these guys can do it, this guy can do it. And so I came home from that conference and I said, we're going for it, but we need to scale our money. And we need to do it out of state because California is too expensive at this time. So I met a couple of people at the conference. A few of them lived in Missouri, in Kansas City, in the Midwest. And I started looking in the Midwest for apartment deals, little 10 to 30 unit apartment deals, smaller enough we can get into and it's not too overwhelming. And there it went. And our first deal was a 27 unit apartment deal in Kansas City, Missouri. And that was the beginning of our trajectory, because from that point, we went from, say, 20 units and 3 million, like I talked about, to now having 1,200 units and 200 million. And that all happened in 3 years. So it goes to show you, once you begin to kind of let loose and let it go and lean in and learn, it's amazing what happens. And kind of surrender, I call it, kind of surrender. It's pretty powerful.
Right. It is, man. That's amazing. So, Justin, your story is not just about money. It's about purpose and impact. How have your personal values or faith influenced the way you build your business and invest?
Yeah, it's a great question. So up until about 3 years ago, I was chasing the money, right? Because money it's a great motivator, man. Trust me, it's a great motivator to start with. But once you've made some in a decent amount, it doesn't become that anymore. You still feel empty. You feel unfulfilled. And a lot of people, this is why some of the richest people in the world are miserable. It's because they're not leading with their purpose. And I feel like sometimes, God has his hands on you, right? And so I ended up going to another conference, and it was a Patrick Bet-David conference down in Florida. And I'm sitting in the audience, buy one of the better tickets so I can meet the people. And first day, about 30 minutes in, Patrick gets up on stage and he says, "Has anybody here ever done an identity audit before?" And of course I'm like, "What do you mean, like an identity audit?" And he says, "These are the 7 mountains." He has like an image up on screen, a graphic, and it's 7 mountains, right? Here's the 7 mountains that inspire people and move nations. And he says, picture this for a moment. A guy builds an insurance company, sells it for $200+ million, has made all the money, has no drive or need to get out of bed each day. He's got plenty of money. He's done. Check mark. So now he's completely unfulfilled because the money didn't do it. He doesn't have drive and direction. And so he's left empty. And he says, this was me. This was me about a year ago. Because I sold my company, PHP. This was Patrick talking. $250 million, right? I got 200 million liquid in my bank. I can open it up and it looks awesome. That's right. But he says I was empty as hell because I wasn't leading with purpose. And he says, I had to do an identity audit. And I had to take one of these 7 mountains, right? Usually business is one of the main ones because that provides the resources, right? Whether it's your job you have or a business you're running, whatever it is, that's driving the resources. And you want to get those resources to become as passive as possible. Because if they're as passive as possible, then that now gives you more time. And if you have more time, then you can go spend time on the other things that are more passionate for you. And so you have religion in there, you have government, you have media, you have education, you have sports and entertainment and culture. And then what was the other one I was missing? That's 5, 6. There's one I'm missing. Oh, family. But family's like not just your personal family, but philanthropy, giving back, helping others, leaving legacy. And so you need to pick, 3 or 4 that are most passionate to you. And really think about these things, because this is what is going to get you excited each day when the money doesn't do it, right? Because money is a motivator, but it's not going to push you through. And so for me, I had to have this identity audit. So I go back to my hotel room that night and I sit there for 2 hours and I'm like bawling in my hotel room, having to like come up with these things and understand kind of what do I really care about in this world. And so business was my driver first because that gives resources. But then the other one was media, simply to raise awareness, right? To give awareness to the message. And the other one was education, meaning how can you go out and help people achieve what they want? And in turn, everybody helps each other, right? It's kind of the win-win scenario. So that's passionate. So the education part. So education, media, now business. The fourth one for me is the family and philanthropy, right? My personal family. But then, and I don't know what your big causes are if you have any, but for me, there's like 3 of them. One of them is called Tunnels to Towers. Are you familiar with this organization by chance?
I've heard of them.
Yeah. So they started after 9/11. And when the towers fell, hence Tunnels to Towers, this organization, because now you have these moms typically left behind with the kids, husband died in the line of duty, The provider's gone, right? They're sitting there with all this responsibility and they can't, it's overwhelming, not to mention trying to be a mom. So this organization comes in and they pay off the mortgage on the house and they give you a free and clear house to live in to protect your kids for the rest of your life. So that's where Tunnels of Towers came in. And so I'm massive on that. And it's evolved and gotten bigger and cooler things, but that's the foundation of it. The other one is the SEAL Future Foundation. So being in San Diego, where like 90% of the Navy SEALs in the world are trained, and my family being big in the military, the suicide rate for teen guys, for SEAL guys, it's off the chart. And so if you can imagine the most elite of the elite of the elite in the world, they go from that camaraderie and then all of a sudden they're moving into civilian life. They don't know how to make that transition from this team, SEAL world into the civilian life of having to actually operate like a normal citizen. And so they lose it a lot of times mentally, physically, financially. It's such a tough transition. And so suicide rates are through the roof. And this organization comes in, helps them transition, right, from SEAL life to civilian life, wraps their arms around them financially, mentally, physically, all that stuff to help this process to drop the suicide rates for teen guys. So I'm huge into that one. And then the last one is disadvantaged kids, because, I'm sure you would agree. And I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family with two parents and a role model in these things. But a lot of people aren't, right? And there's a lot of kids that we have different starting points in life. And we can all agree with that. And you don't control your starting point. I always tell people that. Like, you don't control your starting point, but you sure as heck have a responsibility, right? And how you end up, right? And in getting out of the victim mentality mindset is really critical. But a lot of people don't know how to get out of that unless they have a role model and they have some form of education or knowledge that what's possible. But a role model helps that. And then the education knowledge helps push it further. And so we give back to a lot of disadvantaged kids around the country. And that's like a big endeavor of mine to help these disadvantaged kids, provide a role model, provide the education and knowledge, because maybe you had a really bad starting point in life. And if we can give you a little bit of a pop, like, you'll rock and roll and you'll go 0 to hero. And that's incredible to see that happen for somebody that had a bad starting point. So those are my passions, man. So, you asked about it. It gets me excited. So when I wake up in the morning, it's not about the money anymore. It's about, okay, great. The money's going to provide the resources. It's like, of course I got to work. I got to make it happen. But these things are what get me super excited. So when I am frustrated, when I hit resistance, when I get told no, when I'm tired and I don't want to get up sometimes, and now I'm doing it for a bigger reason. So I throw my ass out of bed versus, finding a way to sleep in for another hour. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. So let's talk about the educational part. You develop programs and training for emerging investors. What have you found to be the most common mindset trap for new investors, and how do you help them break through?
Yeah, man. Holy cow. So organically, about 3.5 years ago, a lot of people were watching what I was doing, like buying all these apartments all over the country. And they're sitting there going, dude, how are you doing this? And they said, do you have any education I can learn from? And so we put some stuff up online that people could take at their own pace. People loved it because I said, Justin, you're pretty good at explaining complex topics about this in a simple layman's terms way that I can grasp it. And they said, do you do any mentoring? Do you coach and mentor? I'm like, no, I don't have any of that right now, man. I'm too busy. I don't know if we can do it. And I never really thought of myself in that capacity. But ironically, right, the education is now a mountain of mine, right? And so I said, let me think about this for a minute. And I went back with our team and stuff, and I said, here's the only way I'll do it, because I don't want to just be this guru online. That's not going to work for me. We have plenty of those. I said, what I want to do, what if we can create a community of well-trained investors that we've helped learn this? And by training them and helping them and holding their hand, but also then creating collaboration and partnerships, finding deals, analyzing them, raising the capital, structuring them, all the financing and capital side that holds a lot of people back, help close and manage these deals. So now they're going to grow their portfolios for their family, and they're going to get wealthy. Awesome. In turn, they're going to want to do probably more deals. Then that allows us to come in if they want to partner, and now we get to partner with them and grow our portfolio alongside them. What a great win-win. And so that's where multifamily school came about, right? The hat and everything. And that started about 3.5 years ago, and it's grown substantially. And we're still rocket shipping because people are seeing like, okay, like our alignment is in place, right? You're not just out there selling courses and mentorships and just taking people's money. Like I said, we got plenty of those, but now you're building something of community and a value where we can collaborate, we can stay accountable. And even with all of that, you talked about what is the mindset. Anybody can teach you the X's and O's. That's not hard. You can go on YouTube and watch stuff till you're black and blue. What I have seen, and I look at it for myself, like how I got through it and what I had to persevere through. It is such a mindset game of resilience in staying the course, because you're going to face resistance in anything that you're trying to grow and do, specifically, even if you're in the real estate investing world. You just have to stay the course, because the mindset, and that's what we help out with even more now. I've realized, gosh, man, it's not even about the X's and O's anymore, because we're doing a great job with that. But then I still see a lot of people stuck. And I was chatting with this gentleman yesterday, Alan, who's in our community, and we had a great conversation like this over Zoom. And I could just see inside of his mind, he's a very analysis paralysis guy, very analytical, and that's okay. But he's literally getting in his own way, and you can like see it, because he like wants to go do something, and then he comes up with excuses why he can't. And he's literally stopping himself in his own track from even getting started and taking that next step and kind of leaping, because he's creating these subconscious roadblocks in his mind about why he thinks he can and can't do things. Or he needs to set up this and he needs to do that and he needs to put this in place and he needs to have that ready. If you have to have that ready, then you have to have that ready. And next thing you know, you're 90 years old. So I can't even express this enough. We could literally have a podcast for 4 hours on this. The power of the mind and the power of just staying resilient and fighting through. But I also think that's why you do things in partnerships and collaborations through accountability and not trying to do it alone. Because I think if you're doing it alone, you know, our minds are a very scary place. And we are very good at coming up with excuses for ourselves. We're very good at it. We do it every day.
Right.
Every day we do it. And so you need people to help push you past that. And sometimes you need people to get you pissed off. Because like I said, pain or pleasure, and pain is your fuel. Most people, and you see it all the time, and I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. You see the pleasure of something and make $1 million or lose 20 pounds, right? A pleasure of getting something, a reward, sounds great, but that doesn't usually drive us. But if I came to you and I said, listen, we found some information, and if you don't drop 20 pounds in the next month and a half, you're going to die. Now that pain, that fear is probably going to get you off your ass to lose the 20 pounds. But if I just gave you a picture of what you'll look like with 20 pounds off you versus you being alive or dead with 20 pounds off you, that pain and fear will move you. The picture won't. Make sense?
Make a lot of sense. So let's talk about this. I've talked to people and they are like in fear when it comes to the real estate market. They say it's always changing. Given your experience through downturns and upturns, how should investors position themselves for a potential recession or credit squeeze?
Don't over leverage. Don't over leverage. Cash flow is key. So you can get into building and selling, flipping, wholesaling, other types of transactional real estate, and that's all great. But you better keep your leverage in check, right? Because this is how people got caught. I watched my dad do it. And my dad made a gob of money in his life, but that's irrelevant because you're going to hit cycles. It's not a question of if you're going to hit them. It's just how are you going to weather through them? And so this is why the apartment game was so big for me. We still flip houses because that's good transactional money. It moves faster. You know, you can move that through, but then we take that money from the transactional world and we move it right over into the apartment world. So that way it's slower, it's steadier. You have low leverage on these assets. You get all the tax write-offs and benefits. You have all the cash flow, and you're preserving that money and moving it. And that is how you would do real estate the correct way. You can do the transactional world, because I understand that that's where people play. You got to move the money into the long-term money from the short-term money in flipping, wholesaling, short-term rentals, any other types of that transactional real estate. Even if you're a real estate agent helping people buy and sell, you've got to take that transactional money and move it into longer-term money. So it's actually going to grow for you at lower leverage and protect you in downturns.
Okay, I got you. So let me ask you this, Justin. What is the big vision for your company in the next 5 and 10 years?
For our capital company, we want to get to 10,000 units and $1 billion in real estate. So that's the capital apartment company that we have. For multifamily schooled, I would love to get to about 10,000 members all across the country who are doing deals together, collaborating on multifamily apartments, finding deals on and off market, but mainly off, raising capital together, pulling down loans and financing and all that stuff, because I know that in collaboration, that's where people are going to grow their wealth. That's where they're also going to hold each other accountable. And if we can grow that, I mean, it fulfills me. I mean, I can't tell you the excitement I get watching one of our students in our community and mentees land their first 30-unit apartment deal. I mean, you should see their faces, man. First of all, they're exhausted by the end of the first process because the first one's always the hardest. But once they get there and they're being handheld through this process and they feel comfortable, I mean, it is crazy to see the level of excitement on their face after they've spent, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months finding deals, analyzing them, putting them together. Then they close on this multi-million-dollar apartment complex with them and a few investors, and they walk up and he can touch the brick or she can touch the brick. I mean, it's like a weight comes off of them. It's almost like pulling the monkey off your back, because now they've leaped and they've taken that next stage in their family wealth and their life. I almost see the pride that gets put in people from this, that I did this, I made it happen for me and my family, and the pride, like just the pure pride that I overcame and I made this happen, and very few people do, is really cool. It's really cool because now I've actually created that transitional character in a way for them and their family.
Yeah, man, I bet it is a powerful situation, man.
Yeah.
It's great, especially when you got your family tied to it and everything else, and generational wealth coming, with it and things like that. That's one of the biggest things. I think, I think that we as leaders in our families and things like that, that's what we should always create, for our kids, grandkids, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So, Justin, give me one non-real estate goal you still haven't achieved but want to.
Pay off 1,000 mortgages through the tunnels to towers. It's kind of like a big vision of mine. I mean, at first I was like 10,000, but I'm like thinking about that going, dude, that's a lot of money. Even 1,000 is a lot of money if you think about it, because the average mortgage probably is about 200 to 300 grand, depending on where you're at in the country. And, so that's, that's a lot of zeros in that. If you add some zeros on it, between, raising money for it, bringing in donations, I mean, that organization's really cool. And if I can be a part of helping do that and pay off 1,000 mortgages, whether it's not just me personally, but me and the organization combined through tunnels to towers, let's do it. I mean, that would be an incredible goal and milestone to hit, to say that I helped pay off 1,000 mortgages for parents, call it, left behind in the line of duty because their spouse died, whether it's a firefighter, police officer, first responder, soldier, and now they're left behind to raise these kids, and they're the sole provider. They just need a little help.
Exactly. That would be huge too, man.
Yeah.
It would be huge. So lastly, Justin, how can my listeners reach out to you, sign up for your programs, or follow you on social media?
Yeah, I always tell people, go to YouTube. Go to YouTube, type in Justin Brennan multifamily, Justin Brennan multifamily. Follow us on there because we have a lot of free content you can enjoy. Learn about multifamily. Obviously, if you want to come in further and hey, I want to get handheld, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, we have a free community. We got paid communities. We have free stuff, anything you want. We just want to provide that point where people can start. And I would say enjoy all the free stuff. And if you want to come in for other stuff, by all means, we're here.
Justin, thank you so much, man, for taking the time and, man, especially dropping this knowledge on us, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Everybody should go on and give you 5 stars, by the way. for your podcast and what you're doing, because I kind of share these motivational moments and stuff with people. It's a big deal because 90% of it's the mindset, as we were talking about.
That's it. Absolutely. Absolutely. There you have it, Justin Brennan. Thanks for tuning in with Real Talk with Reginald D. If you enjoyed listening to Real Talk with Reginald D, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. See you next time.